so I wanted to make this video to explain a lot of the choices that I made for my Harley Quinn dress. So the first thing I want to talk about is my base dress. I actually had a red dress already and it was in a really similar shape, and I thought I could actually use this for this dress. And I thought it would save me time, but lo and behold, I don't think it really did. I actually think it could be quite a good decision to make your dress from scratch. The reason I'm saying that is there's quite a lot of things about our dress that are quite specific. Like the straps, they're kind of wide and like halter neck, and they're all kind of uniform, the same width. The top's like a sweetheart, so I had to change mine to a sweetheart neckline. The main problem with mine was the waistline, and you'll see it in my video. I don't even want to have it as part of the tutorial, but I wanted to explain to you what actually happened with my waistline. I chose that dress and the waistline was like if a stand, it was like up here, when really it should be like here on the waist. So it just made me look a bit out of proportion, like I've got quite a big chest, and it just looked a bit like Dolly Parton kinda. It just wasn't the right look for Harley Quinn, if you know what I mean. It was cute, but it wasn't the right look. So yeah, I chose that base dress and everything was ideal. Like I managed to change the neckline fine, and the straps were fine because I could reshape those. I would say that one of the issues with that dress was the fabric. It was like a polyester fabric, but it frayed a lot. And because I had to make those drastic decisions with like the waistline, because that fabric frays a lot, like I didn't have much seam allowance anyway, and then I had to actually use, fray stop to like stop it from fraying, which is not ideal because you basically put this glue on an edge and then you can add heat to it like an iron or something, and it kind of goes like hard. When I'm wearing the dress, I don't really notice, like it's fine, but like it's not the most ideal way to finish a dress. I think the most ideal way is use like an overlocker, which I don't have. Another thing with fraying, so you want a bigger seam allowance, and what you can do is use those, like they're pinking shears and you just cut them, they're kind of jaggy, so you could always use them to like neaten the edges, but you do need a good seam allowance first for that. And like I think zigzag stitches as well are recommended to stop fraying. I just didn't really have that much room in my seam allowance just because of what I had to do to this dress. It's not something I would recommend at all. So yeah, I would look for a base dress that doesn't fray too much. You could always test it first. Obviously you can't return it if you do that, but yeah, I would definitely try and test the fabric first, especially if you're making it. You want to know that it's not going to fray too much and not going to cause a lot of future problems. I've sort of solved those problems, but not in the best way, so I just want you to be aware of that. That dress also had like a stretchy back, which was not ideal. Like, try not to get a dress like that. I did work around it and it was totally fine. It's just a bit extra work, so try and get your dress without a stretchy back. Try and get it with a really good waistline. Mine's had a half circle skirt, so I would say that sort of size of skirt is probably best. So this is the tulle that I used, and I decided on tulle because I was looking at her dress and it just looked like tulle in the film. Like, I'm not sure if it was. Some people have tried to say it's chiffon. I know that chiffon is a bit more, it frays a lot more. It didn't look that frayed to me, so I definitely thought it was tulle. I actually ordered some chiffon samples because I wanted to see. So there's one that I ordered. It's a bit darker. It's quite nice, but like you can see it like frays a lot. You can see that at the top. And this one would have been ideal, which is already a crimped fabric, but it's chiffon, so again it's like kind of frayed at the edges. It's not the worst, but I just felt like her dress didn't look like that. Tulle's never going to fray because it's like a net, so it's always going to be like this kind of thing. Oh. I'll maybe fold it over so you can see. Looks like that. So you can make that decision for yourself. I managed to work with a tulle. Even though I needed it crimped, I found a genius solution, which I'm so proud of, and you will find out in the tutorials how I crimped my skirt. Oh, so one other thing I want to mention is the sequins. I actually started making the dress before I saw the film, and when I saw the film and she was sitting in the back seat of the car, even though she looked amazing, I was like, oh no, that she's got sequins all under her dress, like loads of sequins. So I hadn't put any opaque fabric in my dress. Like she has like an opaque fabric underneath that has the sequins on top. And with that, you probably need less tulle layers. I don't really mind because I was really happy with my dress. Like I really like the look of it. It's maybe a bit more my style. Like I've done it myself, and it's like my own dress, and it's done my way. So I'm quite happy with it. If I'd noticed the sequins earlier, I probably would have put like an underlining that had them on already. But I'm quite glad the way it worked out because I quite like my dress. So if you want to save time with making your dress, definitely buy the sequined fabric. I'm not sure where you would get that, but anything with like sequins on it that can go underneath the dress. These are the sequins that I used. They're like a metallic red colour. I got them on a string. Another time-saving tip would be to not buy them on a string because I put like thousands and thousands of sequins onto this dress, and every time I put a sequin on I had to take it off first, and that takes up time. So if you've got them all loose already, like you'll save yourself hours and hours. So I would definitely do that if you want to save time. I use these little rhinestones as well because I like fine detail, and I like some details in something that you can only see up close. And the rhinestones, I knew that they wouldn't shine from far away, but I just really wanted them in there. They kind of look like that. I don't know if you see that. They're a cyan red colour and they're quite standard. I just got them off eBay. But you can get them in a lot of places. Using an opaque fabric underneath with the sequins could also be a money saving tip. I'm not sure how much that fabric would cost. It would mean you would need less tulle layers on the top. Like for each row on my skirt, I've got 8 layers of tulle on top. And all that adds up when you have to buy the fabric. So you might find that it works out a bit cheaper as well. And it looks obviously good because it's how it looks in the film, so obviously it looks amazing. I'll talk quickly about the sewing for the dress. I used a stretch needle. When you're sewing tulle, stretch needle or jersey needle or a ballpoint needle are recommended. And I had stretch needles already, so I used those. I also used the stretch needle when sewing through the polyester and the tulle, but I just turned the tension down. So when I sewed the tulle on its own, it's recommended a really high tension, something to do with the force of the needle. It needs enough force to go down and back up or something like that. So I put the tension up at 9 when I was sewing my tulle, just the tulle, and then when I was sewing the tulle to the polyester, I kind of just like found a bit in the middle, because polyester you probably go for like a normal, maybe like a 4 or a 5 on the tension. So I think I chose like a 7 when I sewed both together. But what I would always do is do a test, because if you do a test you can't really go wrong, and you can kind of see if it's too tight or you can see if it's too loose. I did sort of find a happy medium at the 7 for those ones. When I was sewing, I just used normal Gutermann thread, the sew all kind of stuff. It was red and the colour was quite suitable, just their standard red colour if you're doing that. I'll also mention the closure of my dress. My dress already had a side zip, which I found to be totally suitable, easy to get on and off. In the film, her dress closes at the back. It's got little closures, so if you want to be super specific, pay attention to, you'll probably find images of that if you like pause the film or whatever. It's like little hook and eyes, I think, on the back. It's like a corset idea. So if you want to be super accurate, I would look at that, and I would look at maybe some sort of corset tray under the dress. I mean, it's quite fitted. Mine's looks fine, I think. But if I wanted to really get it spot on, like, I would be looking at that kind of idea to get the structure underneath the dress. Another thing I'll mention is the colour of the dress. I was quite happy with this colour. It's quite bright. I've seen a lot of people do like a darker colour. Sometimes it's hard to tell a colour because of film grading, and sometimes it might look more purple or it might look more red. It depends on whoever's graded the films made it a certain colour. I always look for behind the scenes pictures because they can be quite helpful sometimes, and you can get a like realistic colour. I I think for this I couldn't really find any at the time, and I just quite liked it. It was nice and bright, and when I think of Harley Quinn I just think of like red, bright red. So I just wanted mine to be like this. So you can make that decision. Whatever you choose, it's going to look cool, so don't worry about that. I'll also mention the tool I use to crimp my dress. So it's like, we say it's a tool, it's like a hair product. It's a root boost, Babylus root boost that I used to use. I used to use it to like add volume underneath my hair, so you would crimp at the root and it would make your hair like this. So it's the only crimper I had, and it kind of worked out great because it's like this thin type of crimper, and it's a thin crimper and it allowed me to kind of go around the dress without going over all the crimps, and it didn't take too long. Like in my mind it was going to take 9 hours, and I think it took like 3 hours, so that was fantastic. I also want to mention with tulle, right, is that mine's is made in nylon. Make sure you know what fabric you're using. I don't know if all the tull's nylon or not, you'll need to check. Nylon has a melting point of 220 degrees Celsius, I think. So if you're ever putting heat onto this, you need to know the melting point, and you need to know that you're not going to melt this fabric. I never used an iron on this because I think my iron was more than that, and it's just a general rule. just don't iron till I think it's too hot for it. My actual root boost that I used with the crimper, it was like, I think the top temperature was 200 degrees. I tried it first at 170, it was fine, and on my test piece I gradually got hotter, and then I went to 200 and it still didn't melt, and it was fantastic. But there were these like toxic fumes I think coming off, and I was like, no, I need to deal with this, because you can't be breathing in toxic fumes like that. I'm not sure if they were toxic, but you always, like, if you're not sure about something, you need to take the proper protection. So I wore a respirator to do my whole dress. So I was sitting there with my respirator on and doing the crimping, and I was watching The Devil Wears Prada, and I watched that, and I think I watched something else, probably Legally Blonde or something. So I sat and watched those movies and used my crimper. Another thing, like, I used tweezers for the sequins and rhinestones, but I would recommend I mentioned a rhinestone picker in the tutorial, and I would recommend getting that. I bought one and it's like a wax pencil. It just looks like a pencil. It's got a bit of wax in the end that it allows the sequin to kind of stick to it enough that you can apply. So definitely look into getting that if you don't have one. Another tool that would have made it easier for me is one of those turning tubes I mentioned when I'm doing the straps. It's like a tube and a stick, so even if you can find like a random tube and a stick, you'll find it a lot easier than what I did. Like, it took me ages to turn this strap inside out. Like, it just took forever. So I would definitely recommend getting one of those. I think they're quite cheap anyway, and you'll save a lot of time if you want to save time. When you're making your Harley dress, just make it exactly how you want to make it. Like, you don't have to make it accurate to the film. Like, I tried to make mine's kind of accurate, but I had my own touches. So I think it's really important that you're making it the way that you want to make it. But I think that my videos will show you generally how to do the dress, and then you can kind of waver away from, you can kind of do your own thing at certain points, to kind of put your own spin on it. Like, the colour could be different, the way you do the layers could be different, the way you do the rose could be different, the base dress could be different. I just want to mention that there are some times in the video where you'll see something and then suddenly it's not on the dress. I did some of the steps out of order, and it's basically, part of the reason was because I started making it before I saw the film. I had to take some bits off, I had to fix the waistline, etc. So I had done some of the steps out of order, but I have put them into an order that I believe is the best order for you to make your dress. So I just want to explain that, because if you see sequins and there shouldn't be sequins on it, or if there are not sequins and there should be sequins on it, just do the steps in order and just ignore the small details like that. It only happens a couple of times, but I just want to explain that really to you. So thanks for watching my Harley Quinn dress introduction, and enjoy watching my tutorials. Bye!